welcome to the Community Matters Committee meeting to fellow councillors, members of the public, residents, and to folk online. First Community Matters meeting of the new year, cold, dank January day. There are no fire drills planned today. The fire exits are out the front door, side door there, and the door behind me should a fire arise. And we've had apologies for absence today from the chair, which is why I'm standing in Emma Blackmore, Mariam Afzal, Jenny Eastman, and Martin due to ill health. So they're depleted numbers today. So first, can I ask us to go around the table and give declarations of interest from the councillors? None that I'm aware of.
None that I'm aware of.
None that I'm aware of.
None I'm aware of.
And Paul is a fellow councillor. He's sitting up here with us, but he's not a formal member of the Community Matters Committee, so he doesn't have voting rights at this meeting. Okay, thanks.
Am I allowed to speak?
You are allowed to speak, Mike, yeah?
Mike, you can speak, you just can't vote, okay? All right, same as me.
Okay, so Chairman's verbal update report, which got a few things to flag here. First of which is BSIP. We should understand a lot more about this tomorrow, as there's a meeting scheduled with Samantha Caudry from NSC Comms Engagement and Jackie Lauer to give a run through of their current thoughts about Portishead Transport Hub options. We've not heard anything else in regards to an update from them. But Amy from our comms team will be attending the meeting and she'll be able to give an update and share this on social media platforms next week after the meeting.
So this is to do with the bus hub, is it? I think just
That's right.
Just the bus hub, yeah.
Indeed.
Okay.
Secondly, antisocial behaviour at Slade Road. I've had no reports on this since the summer, and the future of Slade Road ownership is currently under discussion again with North Somerset Council, despite them agreeing to hand over the land to Portishead. So those issues remain in abeyance, but in principle, should we take over ownership, we will look at installing CCTV there because of concerns about repeated vandalism in that area and concerns from residents. Thirdly, Portishead Food Bank. The Food Bank are looking for new premises to store and distribute much needed food to local residents who are in financial difficulty. Their existing store is at Gordeno Valley Church on Coombe Road, but renovations are occurring there, and so we're helping them look at local options. I think, Paul, you and Nikki are meeting with them next week.
And Janet and Bob as well, yeah. So, yeah, we're going down to Clevedon to meet them, yeah, to see where they got all their stores.
The other option I've thought about, Paul, for space for that is the Quaker Meeting Hall. We reviewed a grant from on the Grants Committee recently, and it looks like they may have spare capacity up St Mary's Road. Fourth update relates to our now monthly residents drop-in, which is going to be in the folk hall this Friday between 3 and 5 o'clock. There's a theme to this session. It's around sustainability issues. So in particular, if folk have issues, concern and thoughts about sustainability, do come along then. Other bits of update. We're jumping around a bit here. Other thing relating to BSIP is that a letter has been written to the team strongly opposing their plans for the A369 to change the 2+ lane into part bus lane and part transport lane. And thanks to Paul for leading on that. We await a response from them, I think, unless you have any other updates, Paul.
No, we've not had a response, but we obviously know that Hill and Eastern and Gordano Council had the same objections as we did, so they've got they've got 26 town councillors have all told them to go and think again. So we'll wait their reply.
And actually, now might be a good time to talk about their bus stop suggestions. They've written to us asking about our preferences for updating the bus stops with glass and perspex covers, and sent us a couple of options.
Yeah. Oh, you printed it out as well. So, yeah. We'll see how we get on with this because there's a bit of a visual thing, to be honest. But so we had an email today from, or yesterday was it, from North Somerset, about they're obviously redoing the bus shelters. Yeah, they've got some money to basically bring them up to date. There are two types of bus shelter in Portishead. One's called a Queensbury, which I thought were the boxing rules, but anyway. And the other one's called a what's it called? A True Form. Essentially, what they want to do is they're going to be refurbishing them. They want to keep the big A0 what are they, panels, aren't they? Yeah, because obviously they're easy to read. You can also advertise on them, so that was it. That's fine. So they're going to replace the panels and the glass on the Queensbury shelters. No issues. The True Form one is where you've got the just a smaller panel, sort of on the. If you go in the bus stop, it's sort of on the side sometimes, isn't it? And they're just asking whether they want us. Whether they're basically going to replace them with perspex, I believe. Which is what they are today. So they're asking whether we're happy with that because it doesn't, it won't look quite as nice as if they replace it with glass. I think that's basically the end. Bob, don't know, it's your special subject, so.
Yeah, just a few things. Obviously, the rebranding the flags. So are they repurposing the flags? Also, we still have quite a large amount of bus stops still running electronic signs that are still running. So in other words, it's costing electricity to run those boards, and obviously a cost to North Somerset, which is a cost to the public. And also what will happen to those bus shelters, especially like the ones on Bristol Road, because I'm no doubt that the bus routes will change again and again, just as much as the timetables are constantly changing. So what will happen to the Bristol Road ones? And is the town council allowed to advertise local businesses and local events on those bus shelters while they're not being used?
Those are all good points, but they're not actually what they're also. So can we just stick to the question at the moment? Has anyone got a particular view on whether we want them to just do what they're doing in the rest of North Somerset or?
Why aren't they taking the opportunity to put a solar panel on them?
Again, yeah.
Yeah, no, I can't answer that one either. I don't know why they're not taking the opportunity. Probably budget, to be totally honest, on that. I think the question here is, do we want them to make our bus stops or a number of our bus stops look better than they do at the moment? And if that's the question, then I think the answer should be a resounding yes. We don't want them to just get worse and worse and worse. So they're doing it out of the BSIP funding, aren't they? So yeah, it would be a good idea to do that. Bob's other suggestions we need to take up with North Somerset, but they're not in this proposal, are they?
Can I just make it clear that although obviously the BSIP money is helping towards improving those bus shelters, that they stay within the authority of the town council, because we own those. I think it's 26 bus shelters. So they stay within the ownership and control of what happens within those bus shelters.
Okay, they have confirmed that, in writing. So that's fine.
Okay, so does that answer
That's fine. I think it's not. We'll just go back and say I'll just write back to them and say we've had a chat. Some of us said, go ahead with it. Please improve them. Yeah, thank you.
I'm still just slightly lost to know why there is this. We own some of the bus shelters, North Somerset own other bus shelters. Does seem a little bit inefficient to me.
It's very inefficient. It's historical, as a lot of things are. It's because a long time ago, I think North Somerset refused to fund some additional bus shelters, which were a requirement of the people catching buses. So the town council did it instead. That's my understanding.
So as part of the discussion, as well as Bob's points and the solar panel points, can we not say, why not you take the whole lot?
We did suggest that 3 years ago, but it didn't. It fell on deaf ears. I think we could sweep that up in the bigger discussions about assets and so forth. Yeah, we just do one thing at a time, I think.
Okay, just two more updates from me. First of all, parking issues not on the agenda, but Paul, myself, and Tim Snaden today met the Lake Grounds clubs for an update on the parking situation. Myself and a resident, Justine Flower, had a walk around from a resident's perspective the Lake Grounds earlier on today. North Somerset Council were very keen to emphasise to us that this was about implementation rather than trying to stop a process. And now they're looking to fine-tune their plans. So they've had meetings with the Lido, the tennis and cricket clubs, and the residents' representative to understand the requirements of these groups. Based on the reports, they're going to go back and modify their proposal and issue a consultation document, and residents and the clubs will be given 3 weeks to feed back on that. So watch this space. And lastly, from me, we've had some news about a potential banking hub for Portishead to overcome the issues we're likely to face in the future with the closure of our last bank. So Paul's got something to say about that.
Just bear with me.
Can I just ask a question before Paul starts on the Lake Grounds? Do we have a list of which clubs they've consulted with?
We know. As I said, it's the Lido, the tennis club. Tim from the tennis club was at the meeting just now. We met with them at 4:30 this afternoon, and the cricket club, Tony Mott. They haven't consulted, and those are the three clubs with the biggest issues. At the meeting we held, update meeting, the members of the Model Boat Club were present, as well as were members of the bowling club.
Right. And what about some groups that, like people use skateboarding and people who use it for running?
That point has been made time and again to North Somerset, that the grant was secured on the basis that parking in the area would be free. And when I was talking to the visitors from North Somerset Council today, they were proud that they had voted for the skate park, but had nothing to say about the fact that people were now going to have to pay, apart from the fact they thought people might use their skateboards to get down to the skate. But that's
great antisocial behaviour.
Concern from us all along was that grant, and of course I've also spoken to the Lido, who've just received fantastic news. They've received £3 million grant to upgrade the facilities they offer, but unfortunately in that grant there's nothing about guaranteeing free parking. So yeah, I think, and we've got a Lake Ground. Bob, I've seen you. Both your fingers. We've now got a Lake Grounds clubs and residents group that meets every 6 months to kind of update people. It's going to meet more frequently while park is still a hot issue. Bob, then Roger.
Yeah, I think Michael's got a good point. Obviously, we're heading towards spring and summer, which means that you'll have the Keep Fit groups and that. I'm just wondering if this does continue, is maybe to look to invite them to any discussions on future issues with the parking, because we're not quite sure if it's going to actually happen yet. It's still sort of like maybe not scenario. So I'm just wondering if it's worth, as it progressed, that it might be worth looking to communicate with some of those groups.
I have been invited to some of these meetings, and we're very aware of the running clubs, the triathlon clubs issues down there through memberships, but for sure many groups are going to be affected. Yeah.
I think you just touched on it there. I was going to say, are the running club and triathlon club invited along to some of these meetings as well, because obviously their members will have issues with the parking around there.
And also, I'm not formally inviting them to their discussions. Their discussions are with what they see to be the main clubs that are going to be affected down there because of the absolute need for parking. For many people who go swimming. But yeah, no, we're aware of the other clubs that meet there, and we must keep them in the loop.
Thanks, David. Yeah. So Nikki in the office has been in touch with a company called Cash Access UK. So they're the people who provide banking hubs. It reminded me to have another look at them. So when I looked at them about 3 years ago, there was only about 5 in the country. There are now about 180, because obviously banks have been pulling out of towns all across the country. There is one in Nailsea, which is the closest one. I did notice that nearly all of them seem to have the post office logo on the front of the banking hub. So obviously, and there was weighing machines in the pictures, so I presume they offer post office services as well. So so I think that Cash Access are due to visit Portishead on the 27th. So Nikki's trying to coordinate meeting them, obviously, and seeing what their plans are. As far as I understand it, Roger might correct me in a minute, but they can only come in when the last bank closes. But as we know, NatWest is probably going to go this year, so I think so it's obviously the right time to be talking to these people, so we can hopefully get a seamless transfer into another facility. So that's.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say they're funded by Cash Access UK, and then they're run by the post office, which is why they've all got a post office logo on them. So they contract out the running of them to the post office. And I contacted them over a year ago now, I think it was, to find out what was going on. And they said that Portishead was essentially on their watch list because we were down to one bank, and if that bank gave up, then they would be considering what to do. So it sounds like they're considering what to do, as they probably have realised that that bank is going to give up quite soon. Yeah.
Make the same point that Roger did. Actually, it is a post office initiative, the banking hub. So there will be a post office if we have a banking hub. And in a way, the fact that NatWest stay open is doing us a disservice, because they're only dealing with their customers. They're excluding the rest of the population, and they're making us ineligible for a banking hub. So if we could put the squeeze on them to shut sooner rather than later, much as the NatWest people wouldn't be very happy, I'm sure. Sorry, I didn't realise the public could comment on the earlier items. Can I just ask a question as well on the bus shelters? Has anybody bothered to see what they're going to be like vandalism-wise? Because as beautiful as they may be, the minute somebody starts to vandalise them, they look a wreck. And do we know what efforts have been put in to make sure these things are vandal-proof?
I don't, but I'll ask the guy when I email him. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, I think that was all I wanted so far that's on the agenda, but thank you.
Yeah, Chris, sorry. Just to reply on vandalism, within Portishead bus shelters, there's very little vandalisation that actually does happen. I think Brampton Way, they've broken the perspex glass on either side that's need replacing. I think the one on Bristol Road was knocked down by a vehicle about 2 years ago. But in essence, bus shelters are not vandalised as where they were, say, 10, 15 years ago. Yeah.
Thanks, Bob. And Mike, is that a new hand you got up there? Yeah. No.
I've forgotten the hand world. I'll take it down.
That's the end of the Chairman's update. So now public participation. Please, if either of you guys or Gary online would like to make a comment, restrict yourself to 5 minutes, but now's your time. And I'd invite you to come forward to the mic and speak into the mic so you can be recorded and people can hear you online.
So my name's Tracy Edwards Brown. I work for Voluntary Action North Somerset, and I'm going to be working in the area. I've met you before, and I think I've met you before. So I'm going to be working with people over 65, and one of the aims is to actually establish a local forum within the area for people over 65. I know that there are lots of things that are kind of happening in Portishead. And so what I'm doing is I'm hosting a community conversation at Portishead Youth and Community Centre on Thursday, the 13th of February, between 10:30 and 12. I'll get posters out. All right, so you don't have to memorise that. But what I would like to do is actually leave some leaflets in the folk hall. So if there are any people that are interested in, obviously they can pick them up. But there are other things that we're doing, and all the information is actually in the leaflet. Okay. 10:30 till 12.
So we could help with comms for that
Yeah,
as well.
I'll make sure Nick gets some stuff. Or is it Nick or someone? There's
Amy.
someone up there.
Amy does our comms.
Yep, yeah.
But just
that's
send it, you know, if you've got the email of someone here, send it into them and come along to our Portishead Wellbeing Partnership meetings.
I am already
We
part of
meet
that.
3 times a year. Janet's on it.
Yeah.
That's great, and it'd be good to link you up with the. I know there are a couple of over 65s or perhaps over 75 groups that meet in town.
Yeah. So I know of the Portishead Seniors Group Forum.
Okay.
And
there's a group
I know that the Portishead Youth Centre do quite a lot over there. But yeah, no, information would be amazing.
Brilliant. Thank you for coming along, and we're really happy to distribute your leaflets.
Brilliant.
You've got Claire's details, haven't you?
I think I have, yeah.
Yes. If you could send her that, I think she'd be very interested to hear about it, and she'll let everybody else know.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Sorry, can I just say I think you said you're aware of the Portishead Seniors Forum, that the meeting here. We had a request from them that if anything comes up that's relevant to them, can they please be informed? But if you're aware of them, then they've already been informed. That's fine. Just wanted to keep that to make sure that they're included in everything.
Yeah, I've got 2 contacts. So yeah, I am talking to them.
I didn't catch your name for the minutes.
Tracy Edwards Brown.
Okay, Tracy Edwards Brown.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks very much indeed. Thanks for coming
No
in.
worries. Thank you.
Just quickly, following the Slade Road, we know what's happened there. Do we know whether North Somerset have yet signed up for Portbury Wharf? I know they keep saying they have, but I was told as of 2 months ago they hadn't done it.
Chris, what do you mean by signed up? Signed up for?
Well, they hadn't signed over and taken responsibility for it.
All right, I wasn't aware of that. I thought that had already happened.
I know they said it had, but somebody inside North Somerset told me that it hadn't happened.
Okay, again, I'm gonna have to go and check that because I'll have to double check. So as we know, it was a complicated transaction, so they may not have done the final bit. We don't know. So
The intention is then that a management team from within Portishead has a say in it. At the moment, obviously, it's just remote.
yeah, okay.
That's Chris. And just turning to folk online, Gary, is there anything you'd like to ask or say?
No, nothing from me. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. Okay, so next item on the agenda, minutes of the last meeting. Has everyone had a chance to look through these? I sent a couple of typos corrections through, which I think have been incorporated in the minutes now. Any issues from anyone else? Nope. Okay, can I ask someone to propose accepting the minutes of the meeting? Roger, seconder? Bob, all those in favour? I wasn't. Okay. I think you're allowed to vote anyway, Janet, but that's fine. So the next item, CCTV at the lake grounds. This is something that came up back in November, I think. North Somerset Council has informed us that it's prepared to use Section 106 money to install CCTV at the lake grounds to cover the changing places facility and cafe area. They've requested that we agree to pay for the annual monitoring cost of £17.40 in accordance with the existing service level agreement. If members wish to proceed on this basis, the additional funds will need to be included in the budget for 2025-2026. My recollection is after the meeting last time, a point was raised, could they use the existing camera to cover the widened field, including the changing places? So I contacted their CCTV folk and they said, no, they couldn't. The existing camera was a high spec camera. They couldn't improve on its spec and they couldn't make it cover the skate park plus the changing places facility. So I think we're stuck with this. But any comments or suggestions about the resolution, Bob?
Yeah, is this proposed for a fixed camera or a 360 camera?
I think it's a fixed camera.
Okay.
Absent. Paul, this was a request that came through Colin Russell, I think. I don't think.
Yeah. So there were two parts here. One was buying the camera, and this is the maintenance charge on top. So we've already approved the camera. So yeah, this is a standard maintenance charge. So yeah, we want to. Yeah, it was basically. I think we agreed at one of the other meetings that we obviously need to protect the changing places toilets because it's for vulnerable people. So yeah.
Obviously late to this, but actually it's not a standard charge. You can purchase the equipment and you don't have to maintain them. But some of the higher spec companies, surveillance companies, they obviously want renewal. So they encourage rental of equipment and subsequent maintenance. But if you actually
sorry, Focus, I should have been clearer. Basically, we buy obviously you've got two parts to it. You buy the camera. Yeah, but the actual monitoring service is done by North Somerset over in Weston. So what this is and we pay pro rata for that monitoring service per camera. So every time you add a new camera, you get a pro rata charge, and this is for the people sitting in the control room, looking at the screens and then dealing with the issues.
God, rather than me.
Yeah. That's what it's for.
So I think we're being asked to vote on this recommendation. So the recommendation is that the sum of £17.40 be included in the 2025-6 budget to pay for additional CCTV monitoring at the lake grounds in accordance with the adopted service level agreement. Someone like to propose that, Roger? Bob, second it. All those in favour? Thank you. Okay, agenda item 8, the Mead Road play area. Cube climber safety surface. You've all seen the paper about this. My notes. Sharon's done a lovely report on this. The safety surface was installed in 2003. The Cube Climber itself should be programmed for replacement in 2033, providing it's maintained and used correctly, but a new surface is required. And I guess this has been flagged in the regular monthly safety checks on the play parks. Sharon's gone out and requested 3 quotes. 2 have come back so far, the third hasn't. The first quote A on the paperwork is incorrect. I was chatting to Sharon about this. It should in fact be 4,700 plus VAT. It's still the lower of the 2 quotes, and that's the one that Sharon, the Deputy Clerk, recommends that we accept. Any comments or suggestions?
Yeah, I note from the report that I couldn't find in there any mention of a guarantee on this surface, and it said to replace, I think it was cold pour tiles with a cold pour surface. I don't know what that is, and I don't know whether or not this is. I mean, this is clearly to replace something what it looks to be like for from what's in there, and is like for like the best option on this. I don't know how long the tiles have lasted down there either, so it's a bit sort of up in the air. I'd like to know what guarantee we get with the surface, and if we're doing a surface that's not going to last for too long, whether or not we would be better off getting a quote for an enhanced surface. So I'm a little bit on it because I'm not sure where to go, and I guess we've got a third quote coming in.
Yeah,
That,
Sharon's not optimistic about getting it. She's saying she's really struggling to get quotes at the moment.
I don't know how desperate we are to do this, and whether or not we can delay it until my questions are answered, or if it's more urgent than that.
I'm always horrified. It's not a large area, and we're talking about 4,000 against 6,000, and that's a lot of money. And is there not a more sensible option? Because I know that we've had to fork out something like, I can't remember how much it was. Was it 11,000 in the lake grounds?
We've forked out a lot of money on reserves in the lake grounds. I guess it's a bigger area.
Yes, but I just wonder why it's so expensive. I find it quite horrifying that
It's a safety surface, so partly explains it. But there are other surfaces you could use if it's, obviously, you don't have to use that. So it's the same sort of stuff in the lake grounds, the sort of plasticky, tally stuff. But I mean, there are other things you could use, but so maybe we should look at that.
I suppose the other issue is if the climate itself is due to be replaced in 2033, which is only 8 years away now, they're probably going to have to replace the surface then anyway, and having something that's less long lasting might be cheaper. Should we ask Sharon to investigate a bit further, do you think, or should we approve the lower quote?
I would be more comfortable if you sent this one back to Sharon for just a little bit more info before we go ahead with it, assuming that it's not a health and safety risk at the moment, or a major health and safety risk.
Yes, Chair, I've just had a quick look at the cold pour process. The cold pour process is not a tile system, so it's the granules are mixed with the binder on site and poured into place. So it's one continuous mat that would pour under the equipment. So that's the process that will be used rather than those tiles which have lifted and are actually having to be sprayed on a regular basis with yellow paints to ensure that people don't trip over them. So yeah, I think it is fairly urgent.
So subject to, so Roger, would you rather see it back here at the next community matters in a month's time?
Oh, I mean, that's such a difficult one, isn't it? I would like to know what the guarantee is on the surface, subject to it having a reasonable guarantee.
What would you call a reasonable guarantee?
Well, that's what I mean. What 10 did you? 10 years. Yeah, subject to it, say, having a 10-year guarantee
Lasting up until 2033 when it's due for replacement.
Yeah.
So subject to, so should we approve the quote subject to the guarantee of 10 years?
Yeah, and then bring it back if it's got a lesser guarantee. That would feel reasonable, wouldn't it?
Okay.
For us to bring it back with another option that may have a longer guarantee in that case.
Well, Janet, you happy with that?
I'd rather that we had a cheaper option, because I mean, we're going to have to replace these things on a regular basis, and it's going to cost a huge amount of money if we keep doing this for one piece of equipment.
Yeah.
It's expensive. There's, there aren't. Sharon knows all the different options, so
I went to the supermarket the other day, and I wish that there was a cheaper option there as well. And the price of everything has gone through the roof. We know that, and these things, they're health and safety requirements, and they're plastics, aren't they? And plastics prices are linked to oil, and that's all gone up in price. It's never going down, unfortunately. It's only ever going to go up, isn't it?
in which case then I'm gutted to have to say that I suppose I would approve up to a 4,500 as long as it's got a decent guarantee.
Okay, so can I ask people to vote on accepting this subject to reassurance about the guarantee lasting up until for 10 years? We're happy to sign it off. Okay. Someone to propose it? Bob seconded. All those in favour? Okay, thank you. The next item is a replacement tree at the Lake Grounds play area. As you know, Portsmouth Town Council bought this play area from North Somerset Council as part of the skate park negotiations. We've had a couple of trees go down there, and there was a big, I think it was an ash tree that went down. We've still got a stump left there. Tim Snaden and I, the councillors for the ward, had an email from the Woodland and Wildlife Expansion Officer asking the town council's permission, as we own that bit of land, to plant a replacement tree in that area. The tree they're proposing is a ornamental hawthorn, Crataegus persimilis prunifolia, which for the uninitiated is a hawthorn.
Could you say that again? I didn't quite catch that.
I'm sure you all know exactly what it is. It can grow up to 8 meters in height. 8 meters in height. 8 meters in height. The only drawback of that particular option is that apparently when I was reading about it, the berries it produces are potentially poisonous, so it doesn't seem like the ideal tree to be putting in the children's play area. Sharon is also concerned that whatever is planted isn't planted in the flat area of land where children love to run around, but there is a wooded area close, about 6 or 7 trees close to the cafe, and I think a small tree that didn't have poisonous berries would be reasonable. I think it's nice to replace remove trees with replacement trees, but any comments from anybody? My proposal would be that we go back to them and say, look, non-poisonous tree, not a big one, because we don't want the really expensive railings around the play park getting damaged by a falling tree. Janet?
Why can't we ask for something along the lines of, as this was originally an orchard area, to have a tree that was grown in this area many years ago? I know they do have trees like that, so that we could actually have something that was producing fruit as well. Much nicer than a poisonous berries.
So with hawthorn.
Mental hawthorn.
Okay, no, it's just I've just googled hawthorn berries, and it says that they're used as an antioxidant and they're rich in minerals, and it doesn't say they're not edible or poisonous. And maybe it's a different hawthorn, but we need to be certain. Yeah. All right. They're a bit spiky as well, aren't they? The hawthorns they're quite sharp. So if they're anywhere near where kids could run into them, they could cause some quite serious injuries. So maybe just
Apple tree.
Well, I'm not sure we want rotting apples everywhere either, do we? Or thrown at passing cars. Yeah, I was a child once.
But sadly, it's only one tree. I would like to see some more trees down at Lake Grounds, but hey ho. If it's just one tree, you know, surely it's not going to be hard to find a sensible one, and that's it really. But yeah, if anyone would like to put some more trees down at Lake Grounds, I'm more than happy to support that. The other issue is try and probably make it not so noticeable, because obviously vandalism, and we end up having problems with people keep pulling it out.
position there is nested amongst the other trees that are down there, I think. So I don't think vandalism shouldn't be an issue.
Is there room for 2 or 3 trees? Or, because I mean, if they go into all the trouble of getting a crew out and going to plant a tree, why don't they put?
Sharon's concern, I mean, Sharon wasn't terribly keen on any trees there. Sharon's concern was just that space is used for kids running around playing football, and anything that encroached on that area would be difficult for the kids. So I would say if they can fit some on the sloping area down from the flat area, that would be good.
I definitely support that myself.
Go with Janet's suggestion. I think
Okay.
some sort of fruit tree would be much nicer and less spiky.
Can I just say that in the discussions about the lake grounds, when we had the money, certainly it was discussed with John Flanagan and other people, and I thought it was agreed that they would plant a group of apple trees, an orchard on the sloping bit, because I'm sure it was agreed. In fact, it was certainly discussed, and they thought that was a good idea.
That was over where they put the picnic area, not. We're talking about the play area. So.
But there's, if it's on a sloping area, we didn't get that orchard that we wanted, and we didn't get the apple trees that we wanted that used to be grown in Portishead. Not vintage. What do they call them? Heritage apple.
I think it's a fair point, Janet. I mean, they're not asking us about that, but if we want to take that up separately with them, I think there would be people who enjoy tobogganing down that slope, and the rare occasions it snows who might have other views. It's really popular with the kids.
Yes, but if they were at the back of the picnic area, they would provide shade for the picnic area as well.
Okay. I think it's a separate issue, and we could mention that. But in response to their question, it sounds like we're going to vote on the NSC be informed that PTC supports the planting of a tree that is non-spiky and without poisonous berries, preferably an apple tree, if that's in keeping with their plans.
It could be a crab apple tree.
It may need to be a hardy tree for exposed areas that's tolerant of the sea.
We'll leave that to their.
We may be narrowing down what it could be.
So,
sorry, apples, pears, cherries, peaches, and plums can all be successfully grown by the coast. There we go.
Thank you. Can I have a proposer for that resolution, Janet? Roger, second. Okay, all in favour? Thank you, all. Next item, Nelson District Community Transport Limited. I've had a chat to Paul about this. There's still ongoing negotiation about the service level agreement, so we're recommending we carry this one over to the next community matters meeting when the service level agreement has been paid. We'd normally pay Knowsley District Council around £15,000 in April-May time, so there's no huge rush with this. Are people happy for us to go so far? Yeah. Thank you.
We'll bring it back next time. There's just a couple of issues that are outstanding with them, basically. So it'll just take one meeting. Do you want to come to that one, Steve? I was going to maybe invite you and John, because it's financial stuff. And I think it'll be like half an hour, or probably be up to about 20 minutes just to talk to them and iron it out. So, okay, thank you.
Bob.
Yeah, I was just wondering, does anybody know about the communication and involvement with North Somerset Council? The latest on that with Nelson District?
They're not funding it anymore. That's basically it. So there is no relation. There will be no relationship between Nailsea and between North Somerset and DCT from the end of March, basically. So yeah.
Well, it's just sad to hear. Sorry.
It's sad because when you read the report, it's used by about 120 of our residents, 3,000 trips a year. It sounds like very good value for money, actually, that we get from a contract like that.
Go on then. It's in defence of North Somerset Council. They do they do fund some community transport, but they're trying to switch the model of how they're funding community transport, and Nailsea District Community Transport couldn't or didn't want to work within the new model that North Somerset were having. So yes, we are all grumpy, nasty people at North Somerset who don't like to spend money on anything, but at the same time, they were offered ways of doing things that they didn't want to or couldn't comply.
But North Somerset were just sorry, they were unreasonable. I don't know what the officers have told you, but their behaviour was bloody awful, to be honest. And the Nailsea transport people, hang on a sec, whoa. They're a community group. They provide a fantastic service, and North Somerset were trying to turn them into a commercial bus operation. It was completely unreasonable. So I'm sorry.
Okay, and North Somerset asked them to provide them with data of the people the type of people they travelled and what benefit North Somerset were getting for their money, and they refused to do it. So let's not vilify either side on this. Both sides could not work together because both sides had different priorities. I don't think we need to get into an argument about this.
Sorry, I don't believe it, because they provide that same data to us with absolutely no problem. So it doesn't make any sense.
Well, I went to a meeting with them, and they were clear that they could not provide the data that was being asked for. So, you know, you can say what you want, you can try and lay it at the door of North Somerset, but there's two sides to every story, isn't there? And there's definitely two sides to this.
This is discussed outside the committee. But it's a very interesting debate. From my perspective, Nailsea District Transport provide a great service, and it's awesome. We should be supporting it. Okay, so we move on swiftly to community grants. 4 were reviewed by the Grants Committee at its last working party meeting. We requested additional information on 2. We approved funding for 2. The first one was the Great Western Air Ambulance. The team requested £6,000. We thought that in view of our financial difficulties and in view of the fact in previous years, back in 2021, we gave them £2,000 only. The following year, their request went up to 5,000, and then this year it's gone up to 6,000. So they're asking essentially for 3 times more than they did back 4 years ago. That we would be happy to fund this, but only at half the amount they requested. So we're recommending £3,000 funding for that. The Vision North Somerset grant we recommended for funding in full. They're supporting a number of Portishead residents. They're only asking for about £1,000, I think, to further their development work and to engage with more groups of sight impaired people in North Somerset. And so we propose supporting that in full. But any comments or suggestions from committee members, Bob?
Yeah, obviously a little birdie tells us on social media that they're opening up a charity shop in the High Street. I'm just wondering if that's happening, or is it just gossip, or
Who's that, Bob?
that's the air ambulance.
I don't know.
Sorry, are we taking these together or one at a time?
It's time. So that
Air ambulance first, with the recommendation of paying
3,000 out of the 6,000 they requested.
Okay, yeah.
All those in favour? Sorry, a proposer?
I was going to say I'll propose.
Okay, Janet, second. Funded them 3,000 of the 6,000 they've requested. So all those in favour? Thank you. And secondly, Vision North Somerset. Their request is for £1,000. Just trying to find the grant details. £1,190. The funding is to further develop their project through service user-led feedback, developing activities such as swim groups, skittles, and looking to develop activities for younger working age groups with sight loss. To date, 22 plus reported residents regularly attend the hub, and a separate lunch group with 40 plus people joining their teleconferencing groups. So my suggestion of the Grants Working Party is that we approve this, but as with other funding requests, we don't necessarily see this as long-term support, and we look to them to become self-funding in the longer term. But for this grant, we recommend approval. So can I have a support? Yes, Janet? Proposer? Seconder? Roger? All those in favour? Thanks. So the last communication with residents. So we've all had a paper from Amy, our communication manager, setting out options for the council regarding reporting in local print media. Amy has set out a number of options, and I think this is largely to meet the needs of our residents who are not users of Facebook, social media, and to be more in line with Clevedon and Nailsea Town Council, who have a regular item in North Somerset Times, I think. The report sets out the pros and cons of each of the options. The most expensive is local reach, which one article per year would cost £800 compared to 220 for Enjoy and 600 for North Somerset Times. The advantage of local reach is it's put free through everybody's door in Portishead, so everyone would potentially see an item in that, but it's much more expensive than the other options. North Somerset Times, around 6,000 free copies are distributed weekly to outlets around Portishead, and as I say, Clevedon and Nailsea Town Council have items in it. I think Clevedon have a monthly newsletter and Nailsea do theirs on an ad hoc basis. The Enjoy magazine comes out quarterly, would be a cheaper option than the North Somerset Times. But it's less frequent, so we could less effectively target timing of articles with particular events if we were wanting to update people about committee dates or events run by the town council or other groups. So any thoughts about this? This was debated about 2 years ago on Community Matters, and we felt at that time that it wasn't good value for money. But I think from speaking to Emma, and Emma and I both asked to have this on the agenda today, that felt we were really struggling to meet our non-PC literate population groups. And so this paying a relatively small amount of money to have a regular, maybe twice yearly newsletter article would be a way of reaching groups who are currently hard to reach. So Paul, Bob, Roger.
Just a couple of points. I mean, I think a couple of years ago, the North Somerset Times looks as though it's just about to go bust, and there was absolutely nothing in it whatsoever. So I don't know. Has it improved? Do people read it?
Not today, but I haven't read it.
No. Okay. So yeah, I don't know. Has it improved a bit? I hardly ever look at it, so I just was interested. And I suppose the other thing I would say is that we obviously have the opportunity to get articles into the press. So if we're smarter, we can get, because obviously they need some content because they're sort of screaming out for it. So rather than paying for it, you can actually write decent articles, and you'll get them in there anyway because they need them. So I don't think we should be paying for everything. So therefore, I would go for a sort of lower frequency. I mean, also there's the effort of putting it all together, of course. So sort of maximum quarterly, I would have thought, because it is quite a lot of effort to get an article, get it in the paper. You've got all these deadlines. It doesn't really fit the modern world. So yeah, want us to extend ourselves. So there's a few points there. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Paul. So less frequently, and remember, as Amy has pointed out, the kind of additional workload on an already busy member of staff. I think it could be used for. I think it'd be hard to issue a press release flagging up the dates of council meetings for the upcoming year. So it might be a way of just promoting the dates of the full town council meetings to people, so there was some awareness, and maybe once a year a few bullet points about the council upcoming initiatives and opportunities for people to volunteer. But I agree, I think monthly would definitely be too often. Bob.
Everyone's knows what I'm going to.
I'm sure everyone knows what I'm going to say because I go back to the bus boat notice boards again. We have 26 bus shelters in the town. These are all double-sided boards. We can use the back side of them, which looks out onto all the main roads, or like the ones in the high street, which we own half of them, and the rest are owned by Adshal, that are run by North Somerset Council. But again, they're double-sided. So to give you an example, the one by Iceland, the back of it that's blank constantly could be used to provide information. The other thing we've also got is most of the notice boards that are currently now in the town are either falling apart or excessively used. So I'll just give you an example. So the ones that are by the bookshop and the three that are in the square, there was over 92 A4 posters on them. Literally, so you can imagine the amount of overfill on those notice boards. I just think, I know I keep going on about it, but I just think, why are we not using the point of these notice boards that are on the bus stops, which obviously a large percentage of older people use on a daily basis, is the perfect way of communicating with them. It's just a thought, that's all.
How much manpower do you think it would take, Bob, to regularly top those up?
Well, even if you did the ones on the high street, you're only talking about 12 bus stops, and so I mean it's literally unscrewing, putting it out there, and screwing the poster board back up. That's it.
Whose permission we would need to have to do that?
Well, we wouldn't need any permission for our own. It's just the ones that are owned by Adshal through North Somerset, so through the contracts of North Somerset. But as I understand, Adshal's contracts are completed with North Somerset.
I have heard you say this a few times. I'm trying to think and why hasn't it happened yet? I guess there are counter arguments.
I am more than happy to go along with my screwdriver, unscrew them, put the poster up, and screw them back up. It takes literally a minute.
Okay, so that's a good offer. In addition to the potential of using the papacy, which is the issue we're kind of having to decide on right now, but that's a good offer, thanks. Mike, I saw your hand was up, so can I take you before Roger? Mike.
Can't hear you.
Oh,
Mike.
Sorry, I didn't hear my name. Just a couple of things. I thought it was interesting. It said the purpose was to improve communication with residents who are not online. Absolutely agree with that. But I think also another advantage is that actually it's communication with people who are online, because I don't think you should assume that people keep up with Portishead Town Council business by reading Facebook sites and logging on to the Town Council site. So I think it's about reaching people in different ways, and that includes, using the options that Bob mentioned. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. So I think the question is how often. I think if it's not quarterly, the news might get a bit dated, but it's quite a commitment to keep a flow of information coming through to the North Somerset Times is what I would suggest going with, I think. So the meetings would need to, I think, say, let's make sure, almost at the end of a meeting, let's have a couple of paragraphs on this subject to go across to the North Somerset Times or something. Otherwise, I think you're in danger of these things just getting dropped off, and we're paying money for very little publicity. So that's just a few thoughts from me.
Thanks, Mike. I guess it might be a little bit complicated given that our meetings for Community Matters rate is every month, and so I guess we just have to accumulate news items from those and replicate what was produced.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's absolutely.
Yeah, I was going to say I've been around for a while. I remember when we used to get multiple free newspapers through our doors every single week, and the town council used to put a regular I think they used to take a page a few times a year in there and put lots of information in. But things have changed, haven't they? A lot. Print media is really on its way out. And what we're looking at here is how to get in touch with people who are more difficult to get in touch with. And I think whether it's Portishead Town Council, North Somerset, or any other organisation, everyone struggles with how to get in touch with the parts of the community that they want to. Print media doesn't feel like a very good way of doing it anymore. As you said, most of them, you can only get them if you pick them up. So you'd want a print media, if you're going to use one, that was delivered to every single house, which is just one of these, isn't it? I think. And
the only one that's delivered to every house is Local Reach. That's the most expensive option.
And how often does Local Reach come out?
Monthly.
So that would be once a month. So the frequency is there, but the cost is quite high. But that's the only way you're gonna stand a chance in print media of getting out to somebody like that, because you're immediately excluding everybody who can't make it to the high street to pick up a North Somerset Times. So by doing one set, you're excluding another, aren't you? So it's really, really difficult. I'm not sure if we shouldn't take it back and look to try and spend a bit more time and develop an entire strategy on how to deal with this, or if we just pick one of those options and go with it. But it's not there's not an easy solution to any of it.
Chris and then Janet, or just a quick response to that. We have had a working group looking at our communications, which Emma led, and I note that it was Emma who, when I spoke to her, said we ought to be thinking about this for reaching our elderly folk. I don't use Facebook, and for me, I go and make sure I pick up North Somerset Times, because I suppose the things that's drawn me to it is it's a weekly newspaper, and I noticed that Clevedon have got a regular slot in there. I noticed that Nailsea have got a slot there, so we're kind of out with our peers. And I absolutely take the point you say about things are moving on, but there's a generation of folk for whom they're never going to go on Facebook, and this is just another relatively cheap way, I would argue, of getting in touch with them. We could go to Local Reach maybe once a year. I mean, one approach would be to go to North Somerset Times twice a year, reduce costs, and Local Reach once a year to reach everyone and give them council dates. We could ask Amy to go back and come up with a cost for that. I mean, this has been hanging around for quite some time now. Anyway.
What I was going to say was, have you considered a leaflet drop? I know it's slightly old-fashioned, but it was always by far and away the most effective. And if you time it to coincide with other leaflets, these people quote so much per 1,000 or 5,000, and the leaflet then goes to the letterbox, because a lot of these publications, they say they circulate 15,000, but they actually only publish 11, and then they alternate. They do 11,000 one week, and next week another 11,000, and then they're saying they're covering the whole area. But if you get the wrong one, you're going to miss 4,000 houses, and I know that happened in Portishead. Whereas you get a leaflet drop at the right price through the letterbox, people have got it, haven't they? And it's not as expensive as you might think if you time it right.
Thanks. We can ask Amy to look at that price as well. I mean, a leaflet within Local Reach, I'd have thought, one piece of A4, not bad.
Iceland used to use through the letterbox. It was by far and away their best method of advertising.
I don't think we should put aside Enjoy. And I'll tell you why. It's because whenever I go to a hairdresser's or anywhere like a pub or anything like that, there's always an Enjoy magazine there, and there's always people picking it up. And the fact is, because it's a magazine, it hangs around for a lot longer. Okay, you only see one once a quarter, but it gets to an awful lot of people who wouldn't necessarily pick it up, but most people go to the hairdressers, or at some point.
I rarely go to the hairdresser.
I was just about to say, there are some people that possibly don't need to.
I need a haircut.
Janet, I think this, yeah.
Sorry.
Bob.
Yeah, obviously North Somerset have dropped their magazine. That no longer goes out anymore. And looking at the Reach magazine, it is reducing in size, so the chances are that it will fold at some point. And like you say, we're continuously going through these different short magazines or short information magazines, and I'm sure there's going to be another one that will turn up at some point, hoping to make some money out of Portishead.
Just to follow up on what Chris said, I think the leaflet is a good idea. I think probably might get it for about £1,000 for 10,000 households, but it wouldn't reach everybody. So might be worth thinking about, I think.
How much?
It's about 1,000, I think.
I'll do Southward.
Might be. That's a delivery cost, I think. But anyway, I may be wrong, but I think it might get a bit less than that. But there are 10,000 households in Portishead, so.
Okay. So it sounds like we're not in a position to approve a particular recommendation or vote on it here, but go back to Amy and just say, please look at the costs of an insert.
Sorry, can I just say it wasn't clear from this what sort of size, because is it a quarter of a page, a whole page?
My understanding is that it's a whole page. She was looking to
doesn't actually say that, I don't think.
Mimic what Clevedon and Nailsea do. Which is the whole page in the North Somerset Times. I think for I've been exchanging emails with them.
Between 2 pages, that may.
I think for the local Reach, it would be 2 pages. It's a much smaller. It's sort of A4 folded in half. That's like A5. So that's a 2-page offering. They said they put something on the cover as well. So they might, put something out in there once a year, and their front cover was, the latest news from Portishead. Town council, people might open it up and look at the calendar and other events going on in that. So I think we're agreeing in principle that whilst it's old-fashioned, something in the print media that isn't too costly is a good idea, but we'd just like to have costs of an insert.
Sorry, it's also the reach, isn't it? As a few people have said,
yeah,
that's why Chris's idea I quite like is we actually get to everybody,
like local reach, which goes to everyone's door, so you could speak to the local reach people and see if they'd put an insert in it and deliver it at the same time. Okay, I think we're voting on that one. Ask Amy to come back with a update on this for next time we meet. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the signposting and referral service officer update from Claire. So she's her report covers her 3 weeks of working in the lead up to Christmas when she saw 26 people, and she's given some stats on the age, gender, and breakdown of the sorts of issues she's encountered in the weeks leading up to Christmas. I think this is just for us to note for now. My only suggestion is it might be useful for us to look at the last 12 months of activities, because I think she's been keeping detailed records on counts and the problems she's seen over that period, and having a summary of trends in activity and some of the key issues might be more informative, I think, than this monthly breakdown. Janet.
It's building up now, but about 3 months ago, she changed her venues, and the morning that she used to spend in the Beacon Hub, she now spends in the library, and it's taken people quite a while to realise that she's changed venue. We have put out information for people to see, but that's the sort of information it would be good to have in a letter, an insert that we put out. But it's building up in the library now, and last week she saw quite a few people in the library in the morning. But as I say, it's taking some time to build up. Prior to that, when she was in a more settled situation, when she was in the Beacon Hub more often, she was seeing between 26 and 30 people a week, and it's gone right down because of the change of venue. but she says it's really building up now.
Thoughts, comments, suggestions?
Sorry, I was just going to say, Janet, why was there a change of venue?
Because on Friday mornings, the Beacon Hub is absolutely full. The cafe is absolutely full. And there was a case of issues with confidentiality when people wanted to speak to Claire. And some of them walked away because they didn't want to speak in front of other people. But now, of course, she's in a much more sensible place in a corner of the library where people can be confidential.
So I think we note this. Are people happy with the suggestion that we ask Claire to just produce a report? I say just produce a short report.
I got my hand up as well. I come to this fresh, really. Yeah, I just had a few observations, really, and I'm not sort of casting judgment. I'm just sort of asking the questions, if you like. I wonder if 26 contacts for 6 days of time is that a significant number? It's a question in my mind, and it does depend on the nature of the engagements. You know, whether they're brief or whether they're lengthy. I think the other thing that crossed my mind, it details the sort of issues that are then signposted on to other organisations. But the question I have is, obviously it provides emotional support, a listening ear, which is very valuable to people. But the other bits of it, it doesn't really tell me, did these people actually contact these organisations? And was there any significant result from that contact? You know, because there's a difference between providing a support like counselling service to something which is more sort of seeing some clear outturns. And I know it's difficult because you're having a signposting process. So I think there's some complexities in how you measure that. But that's what I would flag up. And I guess also, I guess the other 3 days, which is time spent on other activity, I haven't really got a sense of how productive that activity is. And for me, I guess that's something about whoever this person is line managed by, who has the sort of requisite authority and skill set, would get into that detail. I'm not saying we should necessarily, but it's that level of detail for me coming new to it that I don't really see.
Mike, thanks for that. Your comments echo some concerns I had when I first stood out as a councillor looking at this, and they were, I think, as Janet has said, this doesn't reflect the normal levels of activity that Claire has. I think Janet has mentioned that it's usually twice as many as this. But Janet, is there anything else you want to say?
Yes, she's only actually employed 2 days a week for this, and she only spends 1.5 days seeing people, general members of the public, because she has other meetings as well. But not only that, she spends a morning at the youth club on 1 day a week. She spends a morning at the youth club because there is a closed group of people that need help with things like benefits and stuff like that, and she's there for that. So it's only 1.5 days a week that she sees these people. Very often they're with her for an hour, and frequently they come back and tell her what the outcome was and to thank her for her help.
Thanks, Janet. I think also what you're saying, Mike, is that some kind of evaluation of the outcomes of those encounters would be helpful. We hear nothing, from Janice and others who sat with Claire, and I've done it for half a day a couple of months back. Nothing but praise of the way she operates and the kind of help she gets, and I've seen some very happy customers report on how helpful she has been. But a more sort of formal assessment of that and the results of those I thought would be helpful at some point.
Yeah, can I say I'm not critical of Claire. I don't even know Claire, so she may be really good.
Yes.
There is a talk club for men in Portishead that meets twice a week. And Steve, the guy who runs it, has said that the people that he's had referred by Claire have all turned up and doubled the size of his membership. So that's one of the indications. But obviously, we don't necessarily know, and we wouldn't necessarily know whether somebody's been able to get help from some of the more obscure things. The other issue we have is that a lot of people come to her in absolute despair and suicidal on a frequent basis. And 2 days this week, she's on a course on how to speak to people thinking of committing suicide. So these are the sort of things that she does. And I think that's something that in many ways that's unmeasurable.
Can I just say, it all sounds good, but it doesn't get reflected in this report.
That's why I'd suggest you go along and sit with her at some point in the future, and it'd be good to have, after you've done that, your thoughts about how we might further evaluate the service. I think it's always good to have a fresh pair of eyes looking at this. And I think one of the things we need to be cautious about with Claire is she is a signposter rather than a therapist. So she shouldn't be taking on board complex psychiatric or high-risk cases. But obviously, she does see those cases in her day-to-day work, and it's important that she gets support for what can be difficult encounters, and she has that kind of supervision on a monthly basis. But it's these sort of posts, from my background as well, I'm aware of the kind of sort of levels of activity that these posts would see in the NHS. Thanks. Any other thoughts about that? So I would suggest we just thank Claire for the report and request that if she could, for either the next Community Matters or the subsequent one, just produce a report for us looking at the trends in her activity over time, month, so for the last 12 months, how many people has she seen a month? What are the most common? So she's got a list of the individual places she's signposted to, but what are the most common conditions and things she's signposted to over the last 12 months? And her thoughts about how we might look at outcomes, in an efficient way. The results of her referrals, maybe for a week, just take her customers, her clients' details and email them out for some kind of post-referral feedback.
We also had to remember that on Fridays she works side by side with CANS, and well, she has been, but unfortunately, because she can't be there on Friday mornings, they've had to take her on a second second person at CANS, because Claire was helping so many people that now they're all coming straight to CANS, and so they're having to employ a second person on Friday mornings because of that. But Claire's still seeing quite a few people in the library.
Thanks, Janet. I think it's always really helpful to have a discussion about this role, because it's a pretty unusual one. When we're looking to benchmark her grade, we've struggled to find other councils that do something similar to this. So
yes, and also I don't think it's a goer to take people's details and follow up afterwards, because very often you're not going to be able to do that. And the business about confidentiality and stuff like that, very often she doesn't even know their names.
I disagree with you. I think it's completely reasonable to get feedback from people seeing it's what's done in the NHS, and when people are seen and referred, I think that's not unreasonable. But we can ask Claire to think about the practicalities.
Can I ask this lady what she'd feel about that? following up people because you know you're part of that.
This light on or is this
Yeah, it's on.
It's on.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether it might be worth kind of talking to Citizens Advice Bureau or other organisations that do similar sort of work, and kind of seeing what they do when it concerns sort of like the monitoring. I'd be a bit cautious because I think you're right. There might be people that kind of go through the system, they do what they need to do, and they don't want to be kind of bugged or monitored. But for those organisations that do it on a regular basis and have quite maybe a larger sort of client base, it might be worth having a word with them and sort of seeing what they do.
The thing is with Claire, it's much more the people that come in, they're almost always in tears. They're almost always, this is the last this is the last resort of their that they suddenly realise they need help. For example, somebody came in and he hadn't told his family the amount of debt that he was in, and he couldn't speak to his family. She was the first person that he told. He wasn't going to be able to go do follow up for that sort of thing.
I think,
And you know, we're talking about people who are really emotionally distressed when they arrive.
Janet, I think this is probably for another time. There are ways of doing this. For example, you give someone a piece of paper with an email address that you get them to send a response in if they wish to do that. You don't have to ask them if they're pleasures. You could ask people to say, would you like to give us some feedback? But I think that's for another time. Roger.
Very briefly, CANS, Citizens Advice, North Somerset, for anyone who missed that.
Sorry, my fault. I hate people who use abbreviation.
Right, now, thank you, everybody. So last item on the agenda is committee communications, thoughts about what Amy might want to put out there after tonight's meeting. My preliminary thoughts of the 2 grants that we've funded, and the date of the vans meeting on the 13th of February. But any other suggestions from other people about what might go out in terms of comments?
CCTV camera down at the lake grounds covering the I mean it's an opportunity to publicize the changing places, changing room, isn't it? And say that we're doing something to protect it. So I think that would be a good one.
Thanks. If that's,
We could also say about replacing the play surface in Mead Road.
when that's signed off.
Yeah.
So thanks, guys. Date of the next meeting, 26th of February at 7:30 p.m.
There's one thing, if I may, on Mead Road, because I was listening to your discussion and thinking about it, and I don't think what you've suggested is going to resolve it. Because with the greatest respect, a £6,000 contract with a company like that is not big fry. So they're not going to give an extraordinary guarantee that they don't give to it. They're going to give a standard guarantee. So by saying we want a 10-year guarantee, otherwise we're not going to use you, is just negating the whole thing. If they give a 10-year guarantee, then you'll get a 10-year guarantee. Otherwise, you're getting nowhere by stipulating that. What I think you need to do, with the greatest respect, is ask for case studies and go back and ask for 10 years case studies and do a little bit of your own research, ringing people up and saying they installed it here, is it worked? And that's the only true way, because if people give guarantee for 10 years, who's giving it? Is it bonded? Because if the company goes bust, it's pointless. And if it's, you get them, well, it wasn't us that put it down. You've used our material. We guarantee the material, not the installation. You're better off getting case studies from people who've used them and getting recommendations than relying on the guarantee.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Good steer. Okay, thanks, guys. We're all done.